investigator and owner of CLS Paranormal. I have been a paranormal investigator for 13 years. I have done over 220 investigations. So, like I talked about with you, I started off as a skeptic, but an open-minded skeptic. I didn't start off saying, oh, it's all fake, I don't believe any of it. I started off with an open mind of wanting to discover if it was real or not. That's kind of how I began. So my friend and I, we talked about it for years and never followed through with it, because it's not the easiest thing to get into, becoming a paranormal investigator. There's not a job resume for it that says right here in the box. So that wasn't super easy for us. But I did the research, and I started when I was 16. So what got me into it was, at my high school, if you got a certain GPA, you could make your own elective. You could make your own elective and get a credit for it. So I went up to my teacher, and it was a pretty odd topic. He goes, all right, Chris, well, you got the GPA. What do you want your elective to be? And I said, well, I want to be a ghost hunter. Well, my teacher looked at me like I was nuts, insane. And so that is where the fascination for it began. So we did local things. So that was in Oregon. So I'm originally from Oregon. We did that. And then when I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. So after that, it was kind of a hobby as I started. So it really was never didn't become a full-time thing till later on in life, but it started as a hobby. And I would pick it up as I go, and my group and we would get paranormal equipment. So I brought some of my basic paranormal equipment. I brought this because this is a good starter kit. If you want to become a paranormal investigator, this is stuff that isn't too expensive and is easy to obtain. And there's a lot of research on this and a lot of forums that talk about how this stuff works, if that's something that anybody wants to get into. I'll explain equipment later. But yeah, so after that, couldn't really find anybody to do it with me, because most people think that it's nuts. Paranormal is a lot more acceptable than it used to be. I would say with all the shows and the movies that have come out, the Ed and Lorraine Warren movies, like The Conjuring and things like that, I would say it's gotten a lot more socially acceptable than it was 13 years ago when I started. So that was a big help, having not everybody think you're nuts. So after that, we got started. So I took my best friend, Isaiah, and we started a paranormal group. Where the YouTube came into play and all the social media, that was because when we would go do an investigation, I was always disappointed when it was over. I was like, oh, that was so much fun. I can't believe it's over now. So we would start recording. So we got cameras, very basic cameras, nothing special, eBay and Amazon specials, as they say. And we went on there and started filming, and we enjoyed watching the videos back. We were like, oh, this is so cool. So we started putting them on YouTube, and sure enough, as time grew on, people started viewing my videos. I'm like, what is this? 500 views, 1,000 views, couple thousand views. So it became like a show almost. After a certain amount of time, we just turned it into a show because it was entertaining. And I feel that I have a different approach to investigating. Being on the skeptical side when I started, like I said, I was very open-minded to the idea. Because one of the biggest reasons I started was because I wanted to know that there was more to life than just you go to school, you work, and then you die. I didn't accept that answer, that's just the three things that we were put here to do. So I wanted to get the best evidence possible that I could, that there was more to life than just that. So after a couple years of doing this, and that's something you wanted me to talk about with some experiences and places that we've gone to. So I started originally on the West Coast. So I've done a lot of stuff in Idaho, California, Oregon, Arizona. I would say probably Arizona and Nevada are my favorite so far. But some places that we talked about, some places that I want to talk about that have very significant haunting and very good evidence. I would say probably some of my best evidence. So I started off, as you saw, with a team of 4. So it was myself, my camera crew, Isaiah and Vince, and then my wife. So we started off doing paranormal investigations just like that. And I was like, you know what? What's the most haunted place we can find? Now, these people have no experience in the paranormal. So I'm like, what's the most haunted place I can find to just throw everybody right into? So maybe the next day they can all quit. So sure enough, I don't know if anybody's familiar with this place. It's in Virginia City, Nevada. It's actually where a lot of paranormal investigators, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ghost Adventures, the Washoe Club. You guys heard of it? Okay, so that was our 4th investigation we started as a group, as a team. So that was our first team investigation. So we drove 14 hours from where I live, because I live in Phoenix. We drove 14 hours from Phoenix to Virginia City, Nevada. And it already started off as a difficult time because we went when it was snowing. So we're about 2 hours away from the town of Virginia City. And the owner of the hotel that we were staying at, she calls me and she says, "You guys are going to have to go home and turn around." And I said, "Well, we just drove 12 hours. I'm not turning around." Well, she goes, "All the power's out and everybody's snowed in."
Perfect.
And I said, "Well, you know what? I have a lifted truck. I just drove up there anyway." So we drove through the snow, drove up there anyway, and stayed there with no power, no nothing. It was freezing cold. Snow was piled up probably 2 or 3 feet high, and the town was completely shut down. So that was our group welcome for our first official group paranormal investigation. So we go to this place, Washoe Club. The tour guide gives us a walk through of the building. Now we're in there alone. There's nobody in there with us. We're completely by ourselves. They like to... I'm sorry?
Are you sure you're in there alone?
Well, that's what we thought. That's what we thought. Now, everybody that was in the group had no experience with the paranormal. It was only me at the time. I was the only one that had any paranormal experience of the equipment or at least getting a taste of what it's like. They were just starting off. They were just camera people and video editors. They didn't know what was going on. So we're in there, and the tour guide is telling us all these stories about how people are running out on the tours and how upstairs in the Red Room is the most haunted place to go, and like I said, nobody really knew what to expect because this was our first big place, our big mainstream place. So we're in there, and this building has no power whatsoever. So there's no power in here, nothing to plug into. So I like to use battery packs or electric generators to power my stuff. So we lost a camera member that day because our first experience was this. So this was called the Millionaires Club. So there's 3 floors to the Washoe Club. There's the top floor, 2nd floor, and the 1st floor. So the 1st floor is where the bar is. Now this building had some amazing history. So finally, we get our equipment set up. We have equipment upstairs, we have equipment downstairs. And one of the things that was surprising to us was the tour guide told us that the miners would communicate with each other by whistling. So we're locked in because they usually lock us in the building because I don't want anybody to run out. So we're locked in, it's dark, it's late, everybody's tour guides have gone home, there's nobody there with us. So it's just the 4 of us. Well, started off as the 4 of us. As the night proceeds, you can imagine that some people died down and left. So we're in there and we hear whistling across the building. Now I have skeptics with me. Like I said, they didn't start off on a paranormal background. I did. They're videographers and editors. They don't believe in any of that. So we hear whistling upstairs, and I'm looking around. They're looking at me. We're like, "Was that you?" And we're all surprised at this point because we didn't know what to expect. So we hear whistling. That was the start of the investigation. And then I would say probably the second thing was we had. I don't know if you guys are familiar with EVP recorders. How they work and people use them for investigating. So we went up to the 3rd floor. There was a guy named Scott, and he didn't like women. So my thought process was, oh, I'll take my wife up there. That'd be a great idea. So she comes up there with me. It's just she and I, and we take this EVP recorder, and we set it down in the room, and I go, "Scott, I heard that you don't like women. Do you have anything you want to say to us?" I don't know if I can say vulgar language. Is that okay?
Sure.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay. So through the EVP, we hear, "Fuck you." That's what it said to us. Just like that. Very gruff voice said that to us. And I was like, oh, I guess Scott doesn't like us. Now, I think one of the most interesting things that we captured was we were in the ballroom. Now, there was a huge ballroom in the Washoe Club. And that was obviously, it's called the ballroom, so that's where people danced and had parties and celebrated. Well, I actually have that later I'm going to show in the video. We're walking into the ballroom, and we hear a voice through our camera's microphone as clear as day. It says, "Get him and take him to the morgue."
Oh no.
Now everyone might say, well, why is that significant? Well, on the bottom floor, they had so many dead bodies in the town that the Washoe Club actually had a crypt. They stored the dead bodies. They stacked them so high that the dead bodies went from the first level of the building to the second level of the building. So we assumed that the spirit was talking about the crypt that was in there. So that was now everybody's on edge because we just heard that through the camera's microphone. And then I would say the other one that was very significant. This was a big night for us because this was our 4th investigation as a TV show. This is our 4th investigation. So we didn't really have anything this wild until we did this. So the thing after that was very significant was there's a long hallway, and we were in the ballroom, and I had a camera faced down the hallway, and I didn't react to it at first because I didn't really think anything of it. Now remember, I started off as a skeptic. So I'm looking through the camera, and I see a shadow figure standing at the end of the hall. And I'm like, huh, okay. And at first I didn't think it was anything. I didn't think it was anything until I watched it duck behind the wall and completely disappear. And I looked, I'm like, guys, you gotta watch this. You gotta see this. Check this out. So we're actually watching it back on the video of this figure standing just like this, looking at me down the hall, and then it just disappeared just like that. Just ducked right behind the wall, and you couldn't see him anymore. So that was just the peak of a very wild night that we had. You want to keep going on the Washoe Club? Okay. So the other thing that happened in the Washoe Club was my wife decided to go home. Well, go back to the hotel because she had enough. She had enough, so she was like, I can't do this anymore. She's like, I'm done. So she went back, and it was just the 3 of us in the Washoe Club. Just Vince, Isaiah, and myself. So we're in there, and we're in the ballroom, and we hear a woman's voice, which I do have on my phone. Everybody will get to see that later. We have a woman's voice that talks to us in the ballroom. You hear a voice as clear as day. A woman says, "I'm not talking." Now, some might say, well, how do you know that's paranormal? Well, there's no women with us unless one of my camera guys turn into a woman. There's no women with us. And then we walk into another room around the ballroom, and there were a lot of smells and fragrances, like perfume. You could smell cigar smoke in there. So it was wild what was happening. I mean, it was like this place came to life. Like this place that is completely abandoned, has nothing going on in it. It's like it came to life. So we're walking into another room next to the ballroom, and that perfume smell is trailing us. Well, my camera crew, Vince, he's already on edge because he didn't tell me that he got grabbed on the stairs. He didn't tell me till the end, and it was all over after he said he quit. He didn't tell me that he got grabbed on the arm. Well, he was already on edge. He walks into the room, and there was a mirror in front of him, and he scares himself. Well, you can hear women laughing in the video at him scaring himself. You can actually hear them laughing. And we thought that was funny. So I would say that was probably one of the places that I will never forget is the Washoe Club. It was an absolute amazing experience. That was my first big show episode, was the Washoe Club. But later that night, and I think this is something I'll share because this is really funny. So later that night, I'm in my hotel room, which was the Silver Queen Hotel, which is right down the street from the Washoe Club, which we got to investigate as well, which is very haunted. But I had my suitcase open, and I had all my plastic bags open that I keep all my equipment in. Because you saw on my equipment, we have a lot more equipment.
Oh, a lot.
We have like 8 or 9 suitcases.
Yeah.
So we have the suitcase open, and all the plastic bags are open, and we hear something rustling in the bags in the suitcase. And I'm like, what? I thought a rat, or these buildings are old, anything could happen. So I turned the flashlight on, I pointed it right at the suitcase. You could actually see my bags were being opened and unzipped, and something was going through them.
Wow.
And I looked and I said, all right, We spent 14 hours with you guys locked in a freezing cold building. I'm done. Enough is enough. And sure enough, it stopped. So that was the end of our, I would say, our big mainstream first episode that I think probably got us most of our views and followers is the Washoe Club. And do you want me to continue on more? Or?
Yeah, I have a question for you though. So, in terms of being able to go ahead and actually experience these things, a lot of times children seem to be the most impressionable because they just nobody's hammered home yet that these things are possible. So when you were a child, did you see things before you even knew that you wanted to go ahead and actually do investigations?
Actually, the funny part was I never grew up in any haunted situation. I never had any experiences of any kind. I don't know, something just drew me to it as a fascination. Like I said, I was just fascinated with the fact of there's more than what I see. There's more than you and everything around me. I was just drew to the fascination of there was more. And I think that's what, and I always had an itch to do more. Like I obviously, as a teenager, you're not going to go out and buy any equipment. So I always would, every birthday I would ask for ghost hunting equipment. My parents would be like, what do you want ghost hunting equipment for? What do you want this for? And my dad was a big believer, but he always made a joke about it. He always made more jokes about it. So I was like, okay, we'll see, mister. We'll see what happens when I prove to you that my equipment says that there's something here.
So, did your father or your parents ever see anything that they told you about? No?
It was, there is no history of it in my family. There's no history of anybody liking it. Actually, I had a lot of people in my family stop talking to me. And I had a lot of friends stop talking to me because they thought it was stupid. And I continued through it. I was like, you know what? I don't care what anybody thinks. This is, for me, the only reason I do the videos on YouTube is because I love going back and watching them later. And every video I like to do more and create more and work on the editing. And long story short, when you were talking about crew members, I've lost all my crew members. They've all left. My friend Vince, later that night at the Washoe Club, he told me that he was never going to do another one again because he said he got grabbed on the arm and pulled, and he said that was enough for me. And then my other investigator had stuff follow him home. We absolutely have stuff follow us home. I don't know if a lot of people experience that, but I do. I have stuff that follows me home all the time. I have stories about that I can share later if anybody wants me to, but I have stories about I was in bed in my apartment, granted an apartment, so it's not like how the scary movies portray it where there's a house out in the middle of nowhere. And so I was in my apartment and there was a big mirror. I have a big vanity mirror in front of me where I sleep. And I saw an old man standing in front of the vanity mirror. And because I was used to it by that point, I looked over and I said, listen, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. So I flipped over and went to sleep. So we do have stuff follow us home. And that's like my other investigator quit, was because he was tired of stuff following him home. He got scratched on his chest by something. I don't know what it was, but that was an interesting phone call at 5 or 6 in the morning. Hey Chris, something just scratched my chest. I have big scratch marks down me.
So be disturbing.
Yeah.
If it follows you, will it come off you and go into someone else to follow?
So this is what I found from that stuff. So I noticed that and I know someone else might have an opinion. These are just my opinions. So someone else might have a completely different outlook, but this is what I've experienced. This is what I've had happen. I notice if you ignore it, it goes away. If you ignore it, it goes away. I mean, you're a witness to that.
Yeah.
Like we'll have, like the other night, we had one of the bedrooms got trashed with stuff. Like something pushed something over. It was mad. I ignored it, and it's never happened again. So someone might have a different experience than me, but that's what I found is I ignore them and they go away. I think one of the reasons why they follow you home is because and this is something that I've noticed on investigations, which is another story I'll bring up, but I'll finish my premise of what I'm talking about. So I notice they like reactions out of you, and they like to bring your emotions and get emotions out of you, because I think some of them feed off of that.
Energy.
like we did an investigation. We went to a haunted jail in Globe, Arizona. To the point of what we're talking about. We went to a haunted jail in Globe, Arizona, and everybody in town said, "Oh, this is the place to be. This place is insane." Well, the first couple hours when we were a little spooked by it, because it is a haunted jail, and seeing swastikas on the walls and what the prisoners wrote in there was, a little intimidating. So we're in there, and the first couple hours we were in there, it was spooky. It was on edge. We were hearing all kinds of noises and all kinds of things happen. The minute we weren't scared anymore, nothing happened the rest of the 10 hours we were there. So to answer your question, I think once you dial that fear down of being afraid of it, I think you're less likely to get attached. Because once I started doing so many investigations, it becomes like anything else where you're used to it. You get used to it, you get used to the sensations, you get used to the feelings, you get used to the noises, the sounds, the shadows. You develop like anything else, it becomes repetition. So once I started losing that fear of it, I don't have as much stuff follow me home now. I don't have as much stuff come after me like I used to when I first started, not being used to the emotions. Because I've seen people on investigations with us, people that I've known for years, I've seen them break down crying. I've seen them, I didn't know how I felt about that yet because I never had a sensation or an emotion like that was so powerful it overcame me. For example, my wife, we were at a place in Hannigan, Arizona. It's called the Hannigan Meadow Lodge. And we were experiencing no activity, nothing. I mean, I was convinced that this place, there wasn't much here. There was something here, but not much. Well, my wife started breaking down crying because of the emotions that was in a room that we went into. And she's like, "I've never felt like this. I've done plenty of investigations with you and I've never had this emotions." Well, I didn't say anything to her because I haven't had that happen yet. And then 6 or 7 investigations later, I had an emotion. We're displaced to have an emotion too. We were at a haunted antique mall in Tucson, Arizona. And this place, the lady was really wanting to get somebody to investigate this place. And I was like, you know what, I'll do it. I love ghost hunting. I don't care. I'll investigate it. So we went there, we went out and we investigated, and I had the weirdest feeling. It's the only time out of 220 investigations I've ever felt like this. I was just walking down the hall, cameraman behind me like usual, and I had this emotion that was so powerful. It was like an anxiety, and it was making me angry. And I was getting very angry, and I was wanting to get mad for no reason. And I looked at my cameraman, and I said, "I've never had a feeling like this." I looked at him and said, "Oh my God, what's going on? What is this?" And he's like, "Your face looks stressed." He goes, "You look like you're freaking out." And then as quickly as the emotion came on, it left.
So do you think that you were picking up emotions that were left over in that space? Something that not necessarily was you, but something that you were picking up on that was there from a prior resident, or just energy left over from some other event?
So I do have a couple theories. Again, this is stuff that I've tried to debunk or taken extra. When I find something that I believe is real, I like to go into it a little deeper and try and figure out more about it. So being on your point, I do believe that something was attached to me, but I don't know whether it was an object, because I know objects can contain spirits. I don't know whether the object contains the spirit or whether the spirit is attached to the object. I don't know whether it was a spirit that was following me, because I've had spirits follow me before, and you could smell their fragrances. You could feel the floor behind you. So I don't know if it was an attachment of an emotion that the spirit went through. I don't know if it was an attachment of the object. Maybe I was around a certain object because it came off of me the further I got from that area. But on your topic, yes, I do feel that stuff can make you feel that way. I've also found out that spirits can want you to feel an emotion because they want you to feel what they went through, which I've actually seen that on some investigations where that's happened. Like we went to Tonopah, Nevada. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this place. You guys ever heard of the Clown Motel? Yeah. I see you, yeah. So we went to the Clown Motel, and that was an interesting investigation because there's a cemetery. I don't know if the cemetery is right next to the Clown Motel. And I think the emotions from the cemetery, walking through the cemetery, and you can feel, as you're just walking through, you can feel these emotions and they just roll off of you. And it's the oddest thing I've ever experienced to feel this stuff just now. I know someone might say, well, that's you, that's your experience. Well, I would say I'm probably a little more numb to it because I've done so many investigations. So me feeling the emotional changes and the environmental changes, I would say, is probably significant for me because I'm used to it. So feeling that those emotions and the energy roll off, I think, is incredible.
At the very active day when you really got into this spirit and everything else you picked up and you went back to the hotel wherever you were, did you somehow feel that you've got a psychic dream? They were trying to tell you something? You pick up on it later on?
You know, I've had that. So what you just said, I've actually had that happen a couple times. So with that specific spirit at the antique ball, no, I didn't have any further communication with it or attachments at that time. But I don't know if you were in the basement with me. Do you remember that when I just pulled that name out of my hat?
Yes, I do.
And you were like, "That's my husband."
Yes.
So I have no psychic ability. I am not psychic, but yet I've never met her husband. Never even seen him. I didn't even look at him. I didn't know who he was, and I just pulled that name right out of my hat.
Yes.
I do on your topic. I do think that spirits can speak through you. Absolutely, I do, and I've had that happen. Like I think in the basement.
Yes, you were on the stairs. We decided we hadn't heard anything or experienced anything, and we were leaving. As we were leaving the cemetery, Chris is on the stairs, and he pulled out Dan's name.
I do feel that can happen. I do feel that as you do more investigations, your body almost becomes like an instrument for them. Because you have to, I feel, and I do feel this, I feel you have to accept them. You have to accept them like talking to anybody. Like if I right now I'm in public and I don't like somebody, I'm not going to accept that person. I'm not going to talk to them. I feel the same way with spirits. I feel like they have to accept me, and the ones that do accept me and like me can communicate through me like you saw. So I do feel, like you said, I do feel that's a thing. And the more I do this, the more I've opened myself up to it. I don't mind if they follow me home. I tell them to follow me home. I tell them to talk. I tell them to talk to me. I tell them to
Be very careful.
to use me as a conduit. And I'm not irresponsible, because I know some people can get very. I'm not irresponsible with it. I feel that I've done this enough to know how to protect myself, to know what to do, to know not what to do, and I think that's been a big.
So you don't go around provoking like they do on TV?
No.
I hate that. I think that's so ridiculous. You provoke a spirit and then you're upset if the spirit's a nasty one. Well, you get what you asked for, right?
Right. Well, I always tell people, and this is, maybe you do, I don't. Do you provoke in real life? Do you go around and drive in your car and go, "Hey, get out of your car"? I don't do that. So no, I don't know if anybody's watched. Has anybody watched my episodes? Any of my TV shows? You have.
I have, yes.
So on the provoking side, I would say I probably have a very calm approach to it. Wouldn't you say for my episodes?
Oh, absolutely. When you were in the building at the cemetery, the way you asked for the entity to communicate with you and asked if there was a child there, it was a nice way to communicate. I agree with Bonnie that I don't like the provoking, because you bring out the bad side.
Yeah.
And that's not your purpose.
Right. My purpose is to document paranormal,
Yes.
not to go in there and antagonize.
Right.
Now, I'm sure I think I asked this already. Who's heard of Ghost Adventures? I feel, now this is my opinion on this. Some might have a different one. As opening people's minds to the paranormal and getting an audience for it, they've done an amazing job. They've done an amazing job attracting people and attracting younger viewers and older viewers and middle. They've done an amazing job at attracting viewers. But as what they do as an investigator, I feel is terrible. And I can't tell you how many places I've gone to where when I do an investigation, these places will actually tell me about how terrible these guys were. Yeah.
Have you ever gone into a allegedly haunted place and not experienced anything for hours? Have you? I think you may have touched on it earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not inevitable. You go with, I mean, you look at some of these shows, there's always something happening, but if indeed it is happening, they may have been there for hours, right? They just
Yes.
edited it down or something?
Yeah, so I've gone into a place, I have a story. If you want a story on that, I can touch up on that. So there's a town in Arizona, it's called Globe, and Miami. They're right next to each other, they're neighbors. And there's all kinds of haunted places there. You got the haunted YMCA, you got the Billion Plaza, you got the Gila County Jail, you got the Gila County Courthouse, you got the train depot. So on that, we did a second investigation of the Gila County Jail, and we had nothing happen. So the episodes that you watch on my show, we sit in these places for 10 or 12 hours, sometimes 24 hours, and we get maybe only an hour of evidence. So it's like fishing. I know it's a poor example because fishing and ghost hunting are two separate things, but I use the example of fishing. You could sit there and get absolutely nothing, and you could get one big one that just absolutely was incredible and you can't let go of it. And another thing on what you asked, not every building that people say are extremely haunted can be haunted. Like there is this lady, she does all the buildings, she sets up all the investigations for Globe in Miami, and she told me that the train depot is a place that you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. It's not haunted. A lot of people don't go there because it's not that crazy. You want to do the jail. And I told her, I said, no, I want to do the train depot. I want to do the train depot. I don't care about the jail. That one's over publicized. I don't need to do it. We'll do the train depot first. So we do the train depot. We walk in, first floor, nothing. I mean absolutely nothing. I mean this place is dead silent. I'm like, is there anything even in here? Well, first I'm like, let's go upstairs. The energy of walking upstairs was absolutely amazing. Now, like you said, we sat in this place for hours, nothing. We didn't get anything. So now we're going upstairs. When we went upstairs to this train depot, the place came to life. I mean, it truly came to life. Like, the train depot, after that is some of the best communication I think I have ever had on any investigation. So it was just two of us. And this is a story that I was going to tell anyway, so perfect for the example. So it was just two of us. And they lock us in these buildings. The building was completely fenced, so I know nobody's going to jump this giant fence and crawl. When they let us in, they had to let us in through a gate, and then they locked us in with a chain. So we're not, you're not going to have hundreds of people jumping over the fence going to contaminate our evidence. Because I'm big about evidence contamination. I'm very picky about that. So we're upstairs in the train depot, and there was a guy recently that died there. He was shot by a police officer. He was reaching in his pocket, and the police officer just assumed it was a weapon and shot him and killed him. And we were upstairs. Now this is the place that she said won't have much evidence, won't have much activity. So there's a long hallway upstairs in the train depot, and there's individual rooms. There's no power upstairs, no electricity. So my camera guy is facing me. I'm facing the door that goes to the hall, the long hallway, and my camera guy's in the corner of the room. I shouted out like I usually do, like people have seen the episodes. I shouted out, I said, if there's anybody here, can you come communicate with me? All of a sudden, remember, there's only two of us in this building. All of a sudden, this empty building, you hear thunk, thunk. You hear walking on the floor, thunk, thunk. All of a sudden, it stops right in front of the door that I'm at. My camera guy's looking at me. He's freaking out. He's like, "Oh my God, Chris, do you hear that? Do you hear that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I hear that. Shh, calm down. We're gonna get this." I'm like, "If you're here, this is something that I like to try." I said, "If you're here, can you knock in the room that we're in. Once for yes, twice for no. I'm like, are you in the room? And you hear really loud on the wall. And it's loud too. It's like double as loud as that. And I said, are you the spirit of a woman? And you hear like that, right? In the room that we're in. So on the topic that you were talking about, yes, you absolutely can go into a place that's notorious for hauntings, get nothing. Or you can go into a place that, like I went into, that is not known for hauntings and get a lot. So that is definitely, there's all kinds of places to go. I would say probably the hardest thing about being a paranormal investigator is getting into these places. I would say it's very difficult because some people just want to be cash cows. I can say that for sure. You probably know what I'm talking about. I see you nodding your head. Yeah, some of these places, I won't name names, sorry guys. And some of them are really open, like you guys were. Some of you are like, yeah, come on in, investigate. We'd love to have you.
And you were the first investigative group that we allowed in the house.
To people on YouTube that said that we're not. There were people, so just to confirm that, there were people on YouTube that said, you guys aren't the first to do the house.
Yes,
We are
yes,
the first in the house.
you're the first group we allowed in the house. I'm just surprised that you didn't stay longer. I know you were there for hours.
Yeah.
I expected you to be there at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Well,
And say good morning to everyone.
I forgot who mentioned the spirit conduit speaking. That was you, wasn't it, that talked about that? About spirit speaking through. Someone just asked a question about that? Because it pertains to the house.
Yeah.
So, this is kind of funny. When we did your house on the cemetery, I kept saying, now remember there was no evidence of this, I kept saying there were children upstairs, did I not? I said over and over and over again there were children upstairs.
Yes.
We had no evidence of that.
Yes.
Well, you saw the video, you saw at the end, there was evidence that there were children up there because I asked, and we got responses on our equipment.
Yes. Would you tell them what instruments you used when
Yeah.
you were in that room?
Yeah, so this is called a REM pod, and this is some equipment that we use. So, example. So you have to touch this to make it go off. So you see how like when I put my hand, it does the colors? So we were asking it to touch the colors. Now it's not gonna go off. See, I can sit here and wave my hand. It's not gonna go off unless you get at least semi-close to it. So you watched the video, I was asking the spirits to touch the REM pod, touch the colors, touch the individual colors, blue, green, or red. I asked them to touch that to tell me who they were and what they were. And you saw that in the video. I asked if you're a female or spirit of a child, can you touch the REM pod? And they would touch it and set it off to tell me who they were and what they were. And sure enough, at the end of the night, we got evidence that there were spirits, 2 children spirits, a boy and a girl. There were evidence of children up there, and I kept saying it the whole night too. We didn't even know who was up there, and I kept saying, there's evidence of, I'm like, there's children up here. And I think the most significant thing was we were in the kitchen, and we heard stomping and running upstairs. It was so loud, it sounded like...
He said, did you hear that? And I'm like, it sounded like a little kid running across the floor above us.
It was so funny. It was just like this. It was just like a kid doing that, and it was so loud. And that same room, we heard more. But when I asked him to come into the room where the bugs are, or the 2 windows,
Oh, yes, yes.
I don't know what you guys refer to that room as.
Well, it used to be a bedroom.
Okay,
when
so
people were living there.
So that was the room where we were getting responses. And I also have another thing. I didn't grab it because I didn't know if I was gonna get into it. But
No, the cemetery.
so this is kind of funny. So you can take normal household items sometimes and turn them into paranormal equipment. So this is a cat ball. Is anybody familiar with this? Yeah? Okay. So usually you have to touch these to make them go off. I don't know if this one needs batteries, but that was another way we were getting responses, was I was asking them to touch that, make it light up to see if they could get it to go off, and that's how I was getting responses. Same thing with this. So this is called a REM pod, And this is another device that I use. So again, just like that one, you have to get close to it to set it off. So this is another significant piece that I use because, again, I'm not going to set it off. Sometimes I like to put these upstairs when we do investigations because if there's nobody upstairs and you have to touch this to make it go off, well, who made it go off? So I use a lot of REM pods. This one might be a little loud, but I use a lot of REM pods. That one's not too bad. So I use these to get responses from spirits. So I'll be in a room and I'll say, if you're the spirit of a child, can you touch this device? Well, nothing touched it. I say, if you're the spirit of a woman, can you touch this device? And you'll hear like that. So I always like to get responses through these because you know they're deliberate if something happens.